Hello YouTube, shintigercurl here, that dude in the straw hat bringing you yet another awesome video. This time, I'm doing a review. Well, not of wrestling or a video game, but no, doing a review of a movie. What movie? Well, probably the most anticipated movie of the summer, if not the year. That's right. If you couldn't tell by the title or by the picture, it's Avengers. Age of Ultron. Now, Avengers Age of Ultron is the second Avengers movie to be introduced into the into the massively expanding Marvel Cinematic Universe. Directed by but of course by the first director of the first Avengers movie, Joss Whedon. Now, because as everyone knows, these Avenger movies are all connected with each other, as well as connected with the other Marvel movies, such as Iron Man and Thor and Captain America and so on and so forth. So this is all a connected world. So anyway, don't ask me how I was able to see it. I just lucked out with a friend of my father's who got a hold of the movie early. So there's that, and he allowed me to and a few others to watch it prematurely. So here are my thoughts. Just to warn you beforehand, this is going to have some spoilers. And if you want to wait and see the movie, and if you want to wait and see Avengers Age of Ultron for yourself and wait for it to drop this week, best to turn off the video right now, because it will be spoilers, just to let you know that. So anyway, well, after the first Avengers movie, for a little backstory, after the first Avengers movie, all the Avengers had their own little deals and whatnot. Iron Man and Iron Man 3 suffered from PTSD, left him with a little PTSD after he kind of died at the end of that movie. And in Avengers 3, his house was blown up by the Mandarin, and he essentially destroyed all of his armors. Captain America was busy, well, first Thor came back during something called the Convergence, which involved Malekith, the Dark Elf, as well as his brother. And finally, for Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Captain America finds out that his best friend and squad mate Bucky Barnes is alive and turned into a mercenary for Hydra. And Shield, as you originally know it, if you haven't watched the Winter Soldier or Agents of Shield, you would know that Hydra had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. to a very high degree, and Captain America, the Black Widow, and a few others had to basically take down S.H.I.E.L.D. So S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe does not exist as its namesake. Now, on to Age of Ultron. Okay, so we know, as for time reference, well, we know more than a year has passed since the events of the first movie, with the Battle of New York changing everything. So more than a year has passed, and the Avengers are raiding a Hydra hideout after Hydra has been publicly outed as a criminal organization. One of the leaders of Hydra is, of course, the famous Baron von Straka. And at the end of the Winter Soldier, we were teased about the involvement of the twins, Pietro and Wanda Maximoff. Now, a lot of people are saying that, how are they going to... Now, there's a problem, because while Marvel does own a lot of these properties, they don't have the film rights to certain ones, because this was way before they had a studio, and a major studio at their own. I'm sorry if I'm stuttering a little bit. I haven't had much sleep, so anyway. They haven't had much in the way of so particularly a few of their properties, particularly the Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Spider-Man, are owned by Fox, and thus they can't have mentions. Well, Spider-Man is no longer under contract, is no longer owned by Fox, I don't think. So, and there has been talk of introducing a third Spider-Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I would enjoy. But anyway, but X-Men is still under Fox's brand, so as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe is concerned, there are no mutants. They can't use the term mutants. They can't have favorites like Cyclops and Professor Xavier and Magneto and Wolverine, who is a member of the Avengers. Can't have them. So they went around this, involving Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In the mid-season finale of Season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they introduced Inhumans. That's right, if you're not familiar, Inhumans are an evolutionary offshoot of humans who were artificially evolved by a race of blue-skinned aliens called the Kree. Now, their introduction into the world of Marvel in the cinematic universe centers around them around certain people having the genetic qualities of an Inhuman but need to undergo a process called Terrigenesis, which effectively gives them superpowers, or empowered as they're called. But they haven't been officially named Inhumans, but we all know they're Inhumans. So anyway, Pietro and Wanda Maximoff, aka Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, were originally, of course, mutants, the twin children of the mutant genetic terrorist Magneto. But in this one, they're genetically modified Inhumans, so there's that. Anyway, the movie opens up with the Avengers attacking a Hydra base, and it is an awesome scene to reintroduce us to this team, and the teamwork here is fantastic. It just goes to show that how strong the team has gotten over the years. Of course, there's little bits of jokes and humor, of course, peppered in throughout the movie. This is Joss Whedon's sort of thing. He creates movies and shows like this to be fun. He can tell a good story, but also make it fun for the audience to watch. So you go away having a good time. So there's that. I'm okay. I'm trying to remember here. I'm trying to remember here. And the hideout is led by Baron von Straka, and he prepares to unleash two of his subjects from the Hydra's experiments on Inhumans: Pietro, who of course has superhuman speed, and Wanda Maximoff, who can manipulate minds and throw energy blasts and stuff like that. And also in his possession is Loki's scepter. Now there's a big epic battle. The Avengers take down Hydra, and there's a scene where the Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, encounters the Hulk and tells them they have something called they have a hypnosis type thing going with the Hulk to control him so much. It's basically, she comes up to him, she says, "Hey, big guy, sun's getting kind of low," and she does this little thing with his hands, and he turns back into Bruce. So anyway, after Hawkeye gets injured during the attack, so man, he's pretty much in a bad condition. But the Avengers pretty much succeed in the mission. They get all the information from Hydra's computers, as well as obtaining Loki's staff, which they've been looking for quite a long time. They arrive at Avengers Tower, and of course, I forgot to mention that Iron Man is back in his armor. This is a gripe I have with the movie, that they didn't actually explain how or why Tony got back into his armor, or any of this. In fact, this has a lot of continuity gaffes, that I will say, that they don't connect with other the other movies. So that's a strike against it. Not a big strike, but still a strike. So anyway, the science bros, Bruce Banner and Tony Stark, are examining the scepter. And I gotta rewind this back. When Tony Stark found Loki's scepter, Wanda did some weird mind shit that made him see all of his friends and the Avengers dead and the world being taken over by aliens. So she kind of already fucked with his mind. So anyway, Stark and Banner are discovering that there's something more inside the gem, this gem of the scepter, which houses something like an artificial intelligence almost. That's what they're saying. So, and he mentions to Bruce about the Ultron project, which is essentially a global defense program to protect humanity from external extraterrestrial threats. And they were going to use, and after talking to Thor, he was able to get the permission to study the scepter for 3 days. So him and Bruce study the scepter for a while and start creating the Ultron project. But they hit a sort of an impasse. So what they do is, it transitions into a big party for the Avengers, and pretty much this is a good scene. It has a lot of cameos from various characters from the other movies, such as Sam Wilson from the Winter Soldier, you would know as Falcon, as well as of course Colonel James Rhodey from the Iron Man movies, and we also see the return of Kobe Smulders. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name right. Kobe Smulders. You would also know her as Robin Scherbatsky from How I Met Your Mother. She reprises her role as Assistant Director Maria Hill. Well, former Assistant Director, since she now works for Stark Enterprises since S.H.I.E.L.D. basically went out of business. So anyway, the party is it's like the trailer say. It's interesting to see all the Avengers just together with the various guests just hobnobbing and whatnot. But while this is going on, Jarvis finds the program that Stark and Banner had created had somehow unexpectedly become sentient. And he'd been reviewing all the files on the Avengers. And this is when we start to see bits of pieces of the Ultron project is sort of based off the personality and brain patterns of Tony Stark. So now this is sort of a callback to Ultron's comic book roots, in that Ultron was originally created by the Avenger Ant-Man, Dr. Henry Pym, and it was based off his brain patterns. So I'll get to that later. Anyway, Ultron, played sinisterly awesome by James Spader, sees some problems and kind of kills Jarvis, which is very creepy to watch. So anyway, going back to the party, we also get our mandatory Stan Lee cameo, as he plays an old World War II veteran who gets rip-roaringly drunk off some of that good Asgardian booze. So of course there was also another scene where that kind of explores more of the relationship between Bruce Banner and Natasha Romanoff, which I like. There were hints of it, and people say, "Oh man, this just came out of nowhere." No, there were kind of hints of it in the previous Avengers movie, where you could see that there was something between them. Like when she first went to get him, and there's just, you could tell there was something between them. Even when their last conversation they had before the big battle, where he's like, "Sorry, I turned into the Hulk and kind of ran after you," and she's like, "Oh, it's okay, we're past it." But anyway, we've seen a natural evolution of that to a very subtle romance between them. And I've been hearing a lot of people say this a lot, that it was shoved down our throats and it was terrible and forced. No, it wasn't. They weren't like all over each other, kissing each other, or claiming their everlasting love for each other like all other romances would. It's very subtle. Like, you could see that there is something there between them, but they just are kind of hesitant with each other. And there's a lot of flirting that goes on between Natty and Bruce, where she's talking about how she's also used to fighters and soldiers, but the guy she likes is so smart and brilliant, and he's kind of a geek. And Bruce is like, and after she leaves, Cap comes over and he's like, "Hey, she could be good for you." He's like, "Nah, she probably flirts with everyone." He's like, "I've seen her flirt. That's not flirting. I mean, I've seen her flirt. That was flirting. What she does with everyone else is not flirting. Trust me, I know." And of course, he's curious about what he means, like how he knows. And if you watch The Winter Soldier, you know that Cap and Widow kissed. It wasn't a serious romantic kiss. It was just something. It was just a ploy to keep them from getting caught, since they were on the run. But anyway, we come to the eponymous hammer scene, where all of the gathered attendants and all the mainstream Avengers and and a few others are trying to lift Thor's hammer to hilarious effect. And of course it's a little bit more expanded in this scene, but it's still very, very funny. It's still very funny to see them do this. And of course, Thor sees that Cap can kind of budge the hammer, so it's like, okay. And he picks up his hammer, like, it's about worth. Then Ultron comes out in a dilapidated Iron Legion body and talks about how none of them are worthy, and the only way to save the world must be humanity's eradication. And so he attacks them with a few of the Iron Legion. The Avengers fight them off in a very, very fantastic fight scene. And they destroy Ultron's prime body, but he escapes. After he escapes with the scepter. So so the Avengers are pretty much trying to figure out what's going on. Of course, Tony didn't tell them that they were creating an artificial intelligence. And Thor was kind of upset by it. He's like, how the fuck could you create something like that? And this kind of strains the relationships between the team. Anyway, back at the old Hydra hideout, Ultron builds his new body, of course. And I'm going to comment on Ultron as himself. Ultron is very... A lot of people don't like the fact that he cracks jokes. This is what this is what I'm talking about when I say that he had a when his main engrams were based off Tony Stark's. His personality is more like a corruption of Tony Stark's brain. It's like if Tony Stark really, really went evil, this is how he would bleed. James Spader portrays Ultron in a very... A lot of people don't find him intimidating. I find him scary because of how he's portrayed. Like, he can be cold and calculating in one moment, but in the next moment, so full of raw emotion. It's scary how he can transition so effortlessly between the two of them. So, anyway, Ultron meets up with the twins who want revenge against the Avengers, specifically Tony Stark, because their home when they were little was attacked by terrorists using Stark weaponry, and they've had a hard-on for Stark ever since. And so their next target would be getting some help, some equipment for Ultron's next step of his plan. Now, back at the Avengers, they're trying to track him down, and they realize, and they're checking all their resources and files, and Stark sees a guy named Ulysses Klaue. For those of you who are in the know, Ulysses Klaue is a Black Panther villain. He's Ulysses Klaue, master of sound. And they finally bring up vibranium. And Tony and Steve are like, wait a minute. Vibranium? So that means he's heading to Wakanda. So as you know, vibranium is a rare substance found only in one place in the entire world, Wakanda, the home of T'Challa, the Black Panther. He's not in the movie, but it's just cool to see it get mentioned. Now, Mr. Ulysses Klaue is played by famed character actor Mr. Andy Serkis. You may know him as Caesar from the recent Planet of the Apes movies, and more famously as Gollum from the Lord of the Rings movies, from the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies. And his claw is pretty decent for what it is. He's very subdued, seems more like a scientist and more like a scuzzy traitor. And he meets up with the twins, and he meets up with Ultron, and he said, Ultron's like, I want all your vibranium. And he's like, do you know how much this stuff is worth? It's worth billions. And using his hacking powers, Ultron pays him billions of dollars for the vibranium. And Klaue makes a comment about a quote that Ultron made, and he said, "Wow, you sound just like Tony Stark." And this is a scene that really shook me a little bit. Ultron looks at Klaue, and he kind of he's like, "Why'd you call me that? Why'd you call me that?" And he just goes nuts. He goes on this epic tirade how he's not he's not Tony Stark, and even goes so far as just to casually cut off Ulysses Klaue's arm. Okay, he loses his arm, of course, in the comics, but to lose it that was just brutal. It was just shocking how he went from being calm and collected to just being pissed off. But that's some subtly good acting by James Spader. So anyway, the Avengers arrive at the tanker. There's a big fight, and while Iron Man is fighting Ultron, the remaining Avengers get mind whammied by Wanda, and she makes them see like their fears and stuff. With Cap, he sees himself back in his own time in the 40s with Peggy Carter at a dance hall she had promised him a dance when he came back. For Thor, he saw himself as king of Asgard, but it's descending into hell with of course the returning of Idris Elba's character from the Thor movies, telling him that Asgard is fucked. With Wanda, with Natty, she sees her past as an assassin and how she was treated as an assassin, and that was just very telling to see some of her backstory. That she was going to hit Hawkeye, but Hawkeye says, "Been mind controlled, not a fan of it." And I will say that Hawkeye gets a lot more development, a lot more time in this one. He gets a tremendous more screen time and action than he did in the first Avengers, so that's a plus on this movie. So anyway, Ultron and Iron Man fight. Ultron says that you really should be worrying about your team, and the twins turn their attention to Bruce Banner, who was hanging out in the Quinjet, and using her mind powers makes him rage out. Iron Man tries to get some backup, but all the other Avengers are really fucked up by Wanda's mind shenanigans, so he unleashes Veronica. Now you see Veronica gets mentioned a lot leading up to this between talks between Banner and Stark, but we don't know what Veronica is. We learn it's a giant satellite, and of course this leads up to the most anticipated moment of the movie: Hulk versus Hulkbuster armor Iron Man. And dear God, is it epic. I mean, it is a gloriously over-the-top slugfest between the two of them, with little bits of humor peppered in between. I'm not going to spoil those little bits of humor because they're just so good. They're just so funny. The interactions between the two of them. And it's just an awesome, epic brawl. And Hulk kind of gets knocked out by Iron Man. But it's pretty much foobarred for the Avengers. Hulk they're not asking for his arrest, but it's there, and Maria Hill's like, you guys just better stay low off the radar, because right now it is a shitstorm out there for Avengers. So the Avengers head to this place called a safe house. It's like a little cabin out in the middle of nowhere, or a farmhouse, and they get there and they find Hawkeye's wife and his two little kids, and one on the way, which surprises a lot of them. Not so much Natty, who they call Aunt Nat. And they were like, how did we not know about this? And Hawkeye's like, well, Fury kind of just kept him off the books. I didn't want people to know about this. So, so for the next couple of scenes, it's just the Avengers just trying to get back on their feet. They got mind fucked royally in this one, and they got crippled, and they're just questioning themselves. So Thor kind of leaves to find answers because he saw something in his visions, and Iron Man and Cap are kind of at odds because of secrets and shit, and of course there's another scene between Banner and Natasha, which it's very tense. It's close to a love scene, and you could see the two of them want it so bad, but unfortunately they're just so damaged, not just by what Wanda did to them, but by their own past. And Bruce is like, well, I wish I could have a life like this, like a normal life, but I can't because I can't have kids. And Natasha's like, it's okay, I can't either. The program that created me took away my ability to have children. They thought it would be a distraction, and it's very emotional to see these two just break down like that. And it's the reason why I like this romance so well. It's two people who have this darkness about them, two people who want normality but can't have it because of just who they are and what they've done. I mean, Bruce can't get mad because he's afraid he'll turn into a giant green rage monster, and Natasha is just a former assassin with so much blood on her hands that she doesn't know if she'll ever get clean. It's very, very good storytelling on this point, and I like how they're handling this romance with them. So Cap and Iron Man are cutting wood, and they're having it out about whose fault it was and who's this and this, and Iron Man and Hawkeye's wife says to go look at a tractor trailer and see if he can go get it running. So he goes off, and there's Nick Fury, played of course by Samuel L. Jackson. The two of them have a talk and kind of mention about how shitty things have become. Let's see. Meanwhile, in Korea, a friend of Banner's, Dr. Helen Cho, who was at the party at the time of the first attack, had used some synthetic tissue technology to heal Hawkeye's injuries. She's accosted by Ultron and the twins, and using the scepter gains control over her, and he wants to use her synthetic technology, the scepter's gem, and the vibranium to create a perfect body for him. We all know where this is going. Now, when Ultron begins to upload his mind into the new body, Wanda reads its mind, and because she couldn't read his mind before because he was too much of a machine, but in the body, which is more human than machine, she can see that he plans to wipe out humanity, which the Maximovs just wanted to take down the Avengers and Stark and make them pay for what they did, and hopefully and believed all that bull from Ultron about world peace. But so they create the body. Wanda uses her powers to free Dr. Cho, who disconnects Ultron from his new body. She gets hit, and the twins run off, and Ultron escapes with his new body in a very good chase scene where Cap fights off against Ultron, hanging on barely, with all of them trying to get the body away from him, since he implanted the gem that was in the scepter inside the body. They were able to get the body, but Ultron captures Black Widow. Another telling scene is when Black Widow is captured, and the twins aren't with Ultron at this point. He's like, I should kill you, but I can't because you're the only one here. And this goes to show more about the influence of Tony Stark's engrams, that Tony Stark is grandiose. He likes to have an audience. He likes to show off just how brilliant he is. And this kind of bleeds over into Ultron, in that the only reason he kept Natty alive was just because he wanted someone to brag to, someone to show off his glorious work. And that's very telling. So anyway, the Avengers find the body. The Avengers have the body. Well, Stark and Banner have it. And throughout the movie, they find out that Ultron's been trying to get into the world launch codes, but something or someone has been keeping him from it. And it turns out it was Jarvis, who was spread out all over the net and subconsciously keeping him out of it. Stark wants to transfer Jarvis into the body, the new robot body. But Cap and the others are like, no, you're still under the influence. You're still under that mind control crap from Wanda, and there's a big mini fight between all of them. And actually it shows off how vicious Banner can be. He's like, you know, I could strangle you, and I wouldn't even turn a shade of green. Just kind of frightening. So Thor, who had visited his friend Dr. Selvig from the Thor movies, had a vision of something. He came and used his lightning to restart the android, which has Jarvis's voice. So he says that the stone is actually one of the 6 Infinity Stones, one of the 6 most powerful in existence, and that if that it's more powerful than they know, that if Ultron got his hands on it, if he understood what it really was, it'd be the end for them all, and that the robot was needed to protect it, not just from Ultron, but from someone else. We already know who. So the robot at first kind of attacks them, but kind of settles down. He's like, I don't know whose side I want to be on, but I'm on the side of life, and Ultron's crazy, and we have to take him down. Alright, so the robot, now called Vision, And the Maximoffs join the Avengers and head to Sokovia, which is his twin's hometown and the site of the first battle of the movie. And there they find out that Ultron has built building a doomsday machine as well as a massive army of Ultron robots. The Avengers try to clear out the city as much as they can because I guess this is a backlash from what happened in Man of Steel with all the collateral damage, and people were like, oh, all that damage, Superman should have done better trying to save people. I guess they got a backlash from that, so the Avengers said, the Cap's like, okay, this is the plan. We're gonna before we fuck with Ultron, let's try to get as many people out of the way as we can because it's gonna be a fucking war zone. And so we get to the climax, the final big battle, as the Avengers are fighting against the massive army of Ultron robots. Banner goes to save Natty, and the two of them consider running away together because the two of them had considered just disappearing together because they just wanted to live a life together. But of course, they're Avengers and they have to fight. And during this time, they share. This was the first and only kiss that Banner and Natty share. And she just says, and she asks him, "Are you going to go green?" Like, nope. And she says, "You're adorable." Kisses him and pushes him down a pit. He's like, "But I need the other guy." And Hulk comes up, smiles, and they get to work. And the climax comes when Ultron reveals his master plan. He puts a series of like big fuck-off engines underneath the part, a good chunk of the city, turn it into like a flying meteor, and that once it reached a good enough height, it was going to fall down and turn into a meteor and just pretty much wipe out humanity. So the Avengers are all fighting on this large fuck-off island, and there are still tons of civilians left there. It is a free-for-all, and they're just trying to fight to survive and protect the civilians from any collateral damage, which is very, very hard to do. And then they get some backup from the SHIELD helicarrier, populated by the former agents of SHIELD and captained by Maria Hill and Nick Fury. So they start sending these big boats over to provide some assistance, and we have a scene where where War Machine comes in and he starts beating the crap out of some drones trying to protect the civilians as they're evacuating, and Tony's just trying to figure out what the fuck can we do. I mean, we can't just shut this thing down because even though it will still kill thousands, it will still kill millions just by impacting the Earth and everyone on top of it. And he's just struggling to figure out how to stop it. And Ultron is just pontificating and just saying, you can't stop this. I'm going to wipe out all life and you're not going to be able to do a damn thing about it. So they're fighting. And now, up to this point, they've been always hinting that they were doing all the cliched things to make it seem like Hawkeye was going to die. That near miss he had at the first mission, how they were talking about how important he was, introducing his family, and it makes you believe that Hawkeye wasn't going to make it. So as everyone is evacuating, the twins are fighting, well, doing their fighting thing, and Wanda wants to hold off while keeping this big key that if Ultron touches it will cause the entire thing to just come crashing down and wipe out everyone. And Pietro's like, "You stay here. I'm gonna come back for you. I just gotta keep evacuating people." So Hawkeye notices there's a kid still there. Well, let's see. I'm trying to think of the order of this. So, okay, all the Avengers come together around this big key, and they're trying to and Ultron's like, "I'm just gonna kill you all at the same time." And this one big splash battle scene of them just fighting off Ultron robots together, trying to protect this key. And Vision, Thor, and Iron Man do a concentrated fire on Ultron's body, and he kind of gets messed up from it. And I think Thor starts beating the ever-loving shit out of him, and he kind of gets knocked away. But I think Hulk kind of knocks him away, and all the Ultron robots just started running shitless, and Hulk just starts rampaging and ripping them to pieces, and then they started evacuating, and Natty's like tries to calm Banner down, and at the same time, Hawkeye is trying to save this kid that got left behind, and the twins get separated with Wanda protecting the key, and Pietro going off trying to get everyone off this big ass island. Then you see Ultron singing "No Strings" on one of the Quinjets, just opening fire on everybody, and it looks like Hawkeye bites it. It turns out that Pietro was the one who ran in and took the bullets for him, and he just dies. And Wanda feels this, and she goes nuts in rage and in sorrow. And as for Hulk and Black Widow, Hulk leaps with Black Widow in her arms from the island all the way to the helicarrier, puts her down, and goes back into the fray. Now he sees the Quinjet that Ultron has, and Ultron says, "Oh, for God's sake, leave me alone!" And he kicks him out of the Quinjet, and Hulk is left alone with this Quinjet that's flying away. And Ultron's main body lands on the ground, and Wanda finds him, and he's like, "If you stay here, you'll die." And she's like, "I already died when my brother died. You want to know how it feels?" And using her power, she rips his heart out and just crushes it. But one of the Ultron robots was able to get to the key and just activates it and sends the entire thing crashing down. And Thor and Iron Man come up with a plan to just break it up, and they were able to save the day. And when they were on the boat to the helicarrier, Hawkeye is injured, and he reopens his wound, and he's still with Pietro's body, and he says, and one of the medics says, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm okay. Just leave me alone." And he just kind of collapses on a seat and looks like he dies. It's like, oh my God, he really did die. And then in the aftermath, it turns out that he really did live, and kind of a fake out. This was a kind of a fake out. Everyone knew that one of the Avengers was going to die, and all the signs were pointing to all the signs were pointing to Hawkeye dying. So it was kind of it was a very big shock to see that it was Pietro that was going to die, and a lot of people and this was very shocking to me. I agree with a lot of people that say that he really didn't need to die, that Wheaton just killed him off just for shock value, but we'll just see if it sticks, because this is Marvel. No one stays dead for long, so we don't know if it's going to stick. So anyway, we were dealing with the mess, the cleanup, and after everything's settled, Black Widow's talking to Hulk and telling him that the ship is one of Stark's cloaked vessels, and they can't really track him, and then she's telling him just to turn the ship around, but he just shuts the thing off, and you can see the look of hurt on each other's faces, and as to why he did it, and it's just wow, like these two really just can't catch a break, and a lot of people say that this romance kind of diminishes Black Widow, and I say no, it doesn't. She's still a badass. She's still the most badass female hero in superhero movies today. Just because she falls in love with a guy, a nerd at that, it doesn't diminish her. It just makes her more interesting. It fleshes her out. I mean, you can be badass, but you can also have emotions. You can still fall in love. This does not in any way hinder Black Widow's badass cred. She is not a token love interest. She's still there fighting on the front lines, getting hurt, getting killed, and doing all this kind of stuff. So anyway, the Avengers are pretty much exonerated. They're still looking for Banner, but they're still tracking him. The Avengers have a new headquarters in upstate New York. And Thor is like, I have to go back. This Infinity Stone business is still iffy to me, so I need to go back and look for the others. And of course, Oh, and by the way, it turns out that for some reason Vision is worthy. He can wield and use Thor's hammer. And because of this reason, while Stark and Cap are like, well, should we entrust this thing to a machine, to an artificial intelligence? And Thor's like, hey, he's worthy. That's enough for me. And so he leaves, and Tony says he's kind of quitting. It seems like he's quitting because this whole mess was just too much for him. And he asks Steve if he's quitting too. He's like, no, for the first time in a while, I feel like I'm at home. Like I feel like like he said, that man that was discovered 5 years ago who went, I was one kind of Captain America when I went into the ice. I was another kind that went out. This is who I am now. And so Tony rides off in his sports car into the sunset. And Wanda's still, not Wanda, Natty's still worried about Bruce and where he is. And Cap comes up to her and says, hey, we got work to do. I'm sure he'll come up. And they come up and they're going to train the next group of Avengers, which is War Machine, Falcon, Wanda, and the Vision. And he says, Avengers, cut the credits. Because we have never heard them say once Avengers assemble in any of these movies. And of course, so we have our mid-credit scene with Thanos retrieving the Infinity Gauntlet. And he says he vows to hunt down the rest of the stones himself because he can't trust his subordinates. But that was Age of Ultron. My thoughts out of it, to give it 10, it's a great movie. Just like with Avengers and pretty much a lot of the other movies, it was a fun little ride. I had a lot of fun, and I'm gonna watch it again because it took what was good about Avengers and expanded upon it. I still have some issues with some continuity gaps and the pacing of the movie, and certain parts I didn't really like. But more or less, and I felt that they should have given Ultron's origin a little bit more time, like a couple of more scenes just to flesh him out. And it did feel like that the introducing of his family was kind of forced in, but they did it in a way to just kind of fake people out in thinking that that Clint was going to die. And of course, the reveal that Quicksilver died. That was pretty shocking in and of itself, and I don't really agree with it. But that was here nor there. I enjoyed the chemistry between all the actors in the Avengers was spot on. I loved the subtle romances like the one between Banner and the Black Widow. It was there, but it was not forced down your throats. It wasn't overly romantic. It wasn't overly cheesy. It was just there. It delved into the psychology of these two characters who like each other but have so much hang-ups and personal issues on themselves that they can't really enjoy it for what it was. And people say that, oh, Age of Ultron, well, it ended with Cap and Tony and Cap and Iron Man being buddy. How are they going to work into Civil War? I don't know. We just have to wait until Civil War comes out. It hasn't even been started shooting yet, so we don't know. The whole return of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing felt kind of meh to me after the whole Winter Soldier thing changed everything. It's still kind of meh that they went so easily back to it. I say this is a missed opportunity to have Coulson appear in this one, just to see what their on-screen reactions to Philip Coulson being alive and being and former head of S.H.I.E.L.D. And of course, I want to see what the repercussions will be for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and anything that happens in the movies reflects into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it's going to be interesting to see just what kind of repercussions this event will have for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I have that to look forward to. The fights were incredible. Hulk versus the Hulkbuster armor was a fantastic brawl and one of probably my favorite superhero fight ever. So yeah, this expands upon the universe that the first movie and the subsequent movies did, and I hope to see more of it soon. So, like I said, if I had to say out of 10 stars, I'm giving this one a firm 8 out of 5, 8 out of 10. It could go up or down with repeated viewings, but it's like the Avengers. You appreciate it more upon the second or third viewings. I appreciate the first Avengers more because I've watched it so many times and I can see little things and little nods here and there that kind of make it a better movie. I might bump it up upon repeated viewings of Age of Ultron. And while a lot of people don't like James Spader, I loved James Spader. He seemed threatening and menacing and sophisticated. But his mind is based off Tony Stark's. This is what Tony Stark would do and act like if he just went all balls to the wall crazy. Like, I have to protect the planet. To do it, I have to wipe out humanity. It's the only logical choice. And the little jokes are just bleed over from Tony's mind engrams or what have you. So there's that. So yeah, if you're a fan of Marvel movies or comic book movies in general, I'd definitely watch Age of Ultron. It's up there, and it's a great movie, worthy to be called an Avengers movie. It is an Avengers movie, and it's worth watching over and over and over and over again, which is what I would do. But yeah, that's just my opinion. So that's my review. Like what you heard. If you want to see more, link, comment, subscribe below. Got any questions or comments? Leave them below. I'll get to you when I can. Support the channel by clicking some advertisements, or the tip jar is right up there. Leave a little donation. Any little bit helps. So for this review, shintigercurl, that dude in straw hat, saying good night, and Avengers Assemble.